Okay, almost there. Maybe let's get started. Thank you, everybody who has made the time to come along to this webinar today. We are so excited to have the opportunity to speak to you about the Vitaccess Real MG Registry. And thanks so much to Rebekah as well for the opportunity to come on and speak with her network. We know that many of you have a very close relationship with Rebekah, and she's doing incredible work in the MG space. So it's really an honor for us to be able to speak with you today about the work that we're doing. And I just want to start by giving you some information about what we're going to cover. So this is going to be about an hour long. And we're going to start by introducing you to the team behind the registry. So those of us who are presenting on the call today, but also other people who weren't able to be with us, but who are very important to the registry and the setup and the research that we're doing. We'll also talk about the Vitaccess Real MG Registry itself, how it works, how you can get involved if you want to, which you can do now. We'll do a Q&A, so you can ask us any questions. And at the end, we'll do a live sign-up demonstration. So as attendees, the people who are on the call, your video and your audio aren't visible, but you are able to add in questions in the Q&A section, which you should be able to see at the top of your page. So if you just click on the Q&A, you'll be able to add any questions that you may have. So you can do that during the call. But of course, at any time, if you want to, you can contact us. I'll provide our email address a little bit later, and you probably have gotten a couple of emails from us already, so we're always available there. Okay, so I will keep going. So to start by introducing you to the team behind the registry, at the top of the page, that top line, that is our scientific advisory board. So the scientific advisory board is made up of clinical experts, patient experts who have so much experience in MG in different capacities and who are basically supporting us and guiding us to make sure that we are running the registry to the best interest of patients and also to the highest level of academic rigor. So we are hugely honored to be able to work with all of these people, and we're very lucky to have two of them on the call with us today. So first of all, I would like to pass over to Rebekah, just any words that she wants to say.
Hey everybody. So some of you know me by name, if I've worked with you a lot, but you also might know me as MG Unmasked or MG Hope, my foundation. So I'm so happy that you guys are here with us and with this team. You guys know that I, try to engage a lot with good ethical research, and I do a lot of vetting to make sure that whatever I pass to you and connect to you guys is appropriate and it is effective for the community. I've had the pleasure of really getting to know Mark and the team and what they're doing here, and I'm genuinely so excited for us as a community to see what this is going to produce. We've talked about on MG Unmasked and other places where the research is so restricted and it's very limited in scope. A lot of times it's looking at very specific nuanced information and it misses the bigger picture of what we're looking at and what we need. Something that I find very powerful and effective about this type of research they're trying to do here. It casts a wider net and it allows for so much more to be understood, to be caught, to be clinically, I think, seen from a broader perspective. And it really gives an opportunity for, let's just say we come in and we look at what is MG doing for a specific set of patients. What is your quality of life? Instead of us looking at a particular area, how do you function when you get up in the morning, how do you function with side effects and symptoms with your medication? What do you feel like your accessibility to a particular drug is? Those are all good questions to ask. But we might be missing other symptoms, other issues, either other ancillary things that are part of MG, but aren't really talked about a whole lot. We talk about that a lot with, we look at pain and brain fog and so many other layers to the MG that just don't get addressed. And this is such an incredible opportunity to look at the whole person of MG and to not get so overly specific that you miss what I feel is really important. I've been working with the patient community for almost 13 years now. And one of the things that I've been frustrated as a patient, as a patient leader, I know you guys are frustrated with, is just the limitation on how clinical research is perceived and approached. Um, so that's something that I really find valuable about this type of research. The other thing is this team, you're going to get to know Mark and Fatma here and, the rest of the team. They are individually incredible people, but they're genuinely very passionate about you guys and about helping you guys and stepping into this space for you. This is not just a job for them. Um, they care about every part of your clinical life and helping get you to a healthier, stabler position. So when I got to meet them and start working with them, I was immediately on board. Yes, I'm on board with you guys. I know that here in the US, our clinical culture is so wrapped up in HIPAA. We don't share records. We don't kind of let people into those spaces, even if other clinicians or facilities. It's just so regulated. But in other countries, we don't see the same restrictions. And I've actually done some limited clinical research with other teams in regards to this, and we've seen other studies been produced where they've actually taken patient records that patients have shared from hospital or other places like that, and they've actually caught other patterns and other secondary effects to the myasthenia that were previously missed. And I have seen about 5 or 6 studies that were spawned off of this type of research and access. And so I know here in the US, it feels kind of like, whoa, we can't do that. And they're gonna walk you through the whole process today and kind of, in depth. But I just wanted to speak to that there is so much clinical value to doing that in a way that is protected and effective and safe to kind of again look at that whole picture in ways that aren't necessarily approached and other types of research. So I signed up myself. I'm registered. I went through the process. It's incredibly simple and easy. And as I've continued to meet with the team and talk with them, and kind of really get to know what they're wanting to do for the community. I'm really excited to see you guys be a part of this and really to kind of have you guys be a part of ongoing clinical breakthrough for us in the immediate, but also in the future, not just for um, pharmaceutical components, but quality of life. Our quality of life is very, very important. And that is part of us as a whole person, as a patient community, that how we function and how we go through our day-to-day life, it very deeply matters. And this team cares about all that, and I'm really excited to see us engage on those. So thank you for letting me talk.
Thank you so much, Rebecca. Um, I'd also like to invite Amanda to say a few words. We've worked with Amanda for quite a few years now, so she knows us quite well. And yeah, Amanda, if there's anything you want to add.
Follow on from Rebecca very much, to be perfectly honest. I've had MG now since 1992, so I've really grown old with MG. Um, in 2019, I met Mark and the team at Vitaccess and joined part of the My Real World MG Registry, and found it innovative. Now moving on to the Vitaccess MG Registry, I'm honoured to be part of that. Um, Crumbs. I feel strongly about it from a patient perspective. Fundamentally, I think data is the way forward to find research, ultimately find new treatments, and ultimately a cure. Just lastly, I would just like to say that I find Vitaccess this platform is the way forward. I think it gives us all a platform, and working with clinicians as well as patients, I think, is perfect, because then you get the wide picture about what we are all going through and where we can go from there. So sorry it was a lot shorter than Rebekah, but I think fundamentally this is where we go.
Thank you so much, Amanda.
No,
Thank
you're
you both.
welcome.
That's very, very kind. And I would now like to invite Mark to speak about himself, but also about Vitaccess.
Thanks, Fatima, and thanks everyone else for speaking there. It's really lovely to see you here. Thanks everyone else for joining us. Thanks for your time. Quick background then to me. I'm the CEO and the founder at Vitaccess. I've got a science background, degree, PhD in the UK quite some time ago now. And I started Vitaccess really to focus on what we call patient-centered research, which means quantifying the experience of patients and how their treatments and their conditions impact them and their families in their everyday lives. And as we'll talk about a little bit more, that's different and complementary to the research that's done in clinical trials. And that's really the basis of this registry or this database that we're doing. And it's nice to see this slide up with the people who are involved in this study, as the governance of these studies is really important, actually. So as you've heard, we get input from clinicians and patients and advocacy experts. And it's really the combination of those different stakeholders that we think enables us to do good research. And yeah, we're pretty excited about where we are in this study, and we'd love to have you all involved. So I'm going to leave it on that for the moment. You'll hear a lot more about the study as we're in the next couple of slides.
Perfect. Thanks, Mark. And just quickly to introduce myself, I'm Fatima. I've been at Vitaccess for about 4.5 years now, and most of that time I've been working in MG, and I am the project manager of the registry. So to go forward, we wanted to talk to you a little bit about the experience that we have had working in MG previously. So again, I'm going to pass over to Mark for this.
Yeah, we started working in MG in 2019. We did a previous registry, which was slightly different, actually, and we learned from that. It ran for about 5 years. It was sponsored by Argenx, the company many of you will have heard of. And that gave us the idea to implement a sort of new generation of registry, which learned from the experience of this first study, which is called My Real World MG. Now that study, and that was the one Amanda referred to, that she participated in as well, it was a global study. It was 11 countries, over 2,000 participants, which was great. But it was only patient-reported data. So all of the data that we had were reported directly from patients using a smartphone app. Now, that was valuable in a whole range of ways. We learned about a range of things that weren't typically considered, or the objective for clinical trial research. So things like fatigue, things like quality of life, things like the impact on patients and their families of work productivity. Now, you listening to this call, you'll know that those are all really important things. So we knew that there was a lot more to be learned about those topics. So we thought a registry was valuable. However, one of the problems we had was the data we had was only patient reported. We thought it would be more powerful if we also were able to get direct access to the medical record data. That would mean that we would not have to ask patients themselves about some quite detailed things about when they started treatments, what the dosages were, when they changed, when they were diagnosed, all of that medical stuff, which of course many of you will know because it's so important. But if that happened a number of years ago, it might be more difficult for you to reconstruct all of that information. So the new registry, as you'll see, combines EMR data, electronic medical record data that we get separately, plus the patient-reported data, which is what you will give us directly about things like quality of life, fatigue, etc. And that also means we're able to, it's less burdensome. We're only asking you those patient-reported survey aspects, which hopefully is less burdensome, really easy to integrate into your daily lives, not too time-consuming. And we've started doing all that already, getting really nice engagement over time. And this is a long-term study. I hesitate to make any of these points because you will know them far better than me. It's a long-term condition. So again, one of the real benefits we're going to have here is exploring over a long period of time, and the duration of the initial duration of the registry is 10 years. So of course that's very different from clinical trials, which are far shorter. Okay, so it'll be very interesting exploring over time, a long period of time, how things change in terms of the time course of the disease, of treatments, and how they impact participants. And just at the bottom, on the previous study, we got lots of publications, scientific publications out of it. So we were able to learn lots of stuff. We did it in a rigorous way. And that's the same setup really for this new registry. You saw all the clinicians and the scientific advisory board. We're doing this to be as rigorous scientifically as we can, so we can publish the data, because that's how we can make things matter and make changes. But we're also hoping to do it in a very accessible way. So for the most important people, the participants, it isn't too burdensome, it isn't too cumbersome, and hopefully involvement is a satisfying experience for you.
Wonderful. Thank you, Mark. Right, okay. I wanted to say a few words about the type of research that we are doing. So this type of research is called real world or observational research, and it is set apart from clinical trials, which most of you will have heard of. And the way that clinical trials work is that they really control the environment that you are doing your research in. So you're really able to focus in on the factors that you're interested in, and everything else that could possibly affect those factors are controlled. So clinical trials are really powerful, but they do not account for the complications of being a human being. So all the different ways that you are affected on a day-to-day and all the ways that your experiences are impacted. And this is where real-world research comes in. So it's our little red friend on the right here. Yes, Rebecca, please. You're muted, I think.
So sorry about that.
That's okay.
I just wanted to verify real quick before we went forward. On my end, I'm not able to access the chat. I just want to make sure that the attendees were able to access it, just in case they did have questions as we were kind of moving through. It might just be on my end. I just wanted to quick check to make sure everybody was okay.
Yeah, thank you for checking. So the chat is disabled, but the Q&A that's next to it is enabled. So you should be able to
Okay, that's
type
perfect.
things in there. But please do try, and if there are any issues, hopefully you can let us know or drop us an email or something. Or Rebecca, let me know if you're not able to use the Q&A.
That's fine. I just wanted to make sure, as we were going through, if they had questions during the presentation, that they could shout out. And when I went into chat, I was looking for that. So sorry to interrupt.
No, you're good.
My
That's
apologies.
a
Go
very
ahead.
good point. Hopefully people can use the Q&A, but that is next to the chat icon at the top. There's a Q&A, so you should be able to use that. Okay, so yeah, we're talking about real world research and how it's different to clinical trials. So I was just saying clinical trial research is super important, but the way that real world research comes in is we ask you, I mean, this is the type of research that is really our bread and butter at Vitaccess. So we do a lot of real world observational research. And to do that, we ask you about your quality of life, how you've been experiencing fatigue, how you've slept, things like that. And we ask about it over a longer period of time. So a clinical trial is typically a specific point in time, controlled environment. Real world research is as you are living your life, we're not getting involved in your life, we're just observing, and it's over a longer period of time. And this is really important in a condition like MG because it's changing all the time. So you might feel good in the morning, bad in the evening, good one week, bad next week. And that's why collecting information over a longer period of time is really valuable, because then we understand more about your experiences. And you can see here, they're high-fiving in the corner. It's just to say that clinical trial data and real-world research data are really powerful when they are combined. So yeah, that's just a bit of background on the type of research. And yes, I hope that people are able to use the Q&A box if they have questions. And I'll just speak a bit about the registry itself. So in general, our participants contribute data, which we will talk about on the next slide a bit more. This data is all combined in the registry. So the registry is a database, and that's the smiley face one in the middle. So the registry contains all of that data, and all of that data can be used in different research studies to understand more about MG, understand more about its treatment, and what we need to do to improve therapy and care for people who are impacted by MG. And something that I think is really important to mention is that we, Vitaccess, we are the sponsor of the registry. So that means that we take care of the data, we manage any research that's done with it. And we as a company are not biased. So we're not biased towards a certain pharmaceutical company, or we're not biased towards a certain outcome. We're not trying to lead everything into a certain direction. We don't have a certain agenda. The whole idea is just to create a data set that can be used for research by different people. And in that way, we just hope to help different groups get to their insights quicker and in a more streamlined way. So that's just some high level information, but we're going to go into a bit more detail on the next slide about what data we collect and why. And for this, I will pass over to Mark.
Thank you very much. So really, as I mentioned before, the key part of the design of this registry is the combination of different sources of data. So we've got, on the one hand, the electronic medical record data that you see on the right there in the image. And on the other, it's direct data provided by patients. And what that means is, as you'll see, hopefully when you sign up, is you get notifications to complete a particular survey. And it might be about your quality of life or about your fatigue, etc. And it's a standardized survey. It's standardized because that means we can use it and publish it scientifically, and you can compare with, and what the survey, what the questionnaire means has been carefully validated scientifically. So that means that it gives good weight to what we're asking. It's a validated framework for asking these questions in a scientific way. So we put those two things together and we get the single data set for research. And that research could be, as Rebekah was saying, it could be any number of topics, some of which we won't know yet. And that's the nature of the enterprise, that we're doing this studies in the long term, and we will find out things that we hadn't suspected when we started. And frankly, that's one of the really exciting and interesting things that motivates us to do this. We've got some ideas about the types of research we're interested in, but some we won't know until the data set develops. And as Fatima said, the fact that we're a third party, we've got this hopefully even-handed relationship with different pharmaceutical companies and different academic researchers, means that we're open to research from all of those groups. And hopefully that's in the interests of patients and science as well, the advancement of understanding the condition and its treatments.
Thank you, Mark. And please, could you also give us a bit of information about the data and security?
So data and security, of course, are a primary consideration for us. And there's a whole load of aspects of those, the very rigorous framework that we set up for this study listed on the right. I've split the rigor, if you like, into a couple of bits. One is even before the study gets launched, when we're designing it, we work rigorously with scientific and other partners to make it as scientifically robust as possible. It has to get approved by, and it has been approved by an independent review board, Salus IRB there. They look at the ethical considerations that we're doing everything with respect to good ethical practice. And then once the study is launched, it's done in a way that's compliant with various frameworks such as HIPAA, particularly in the US, GDPR globally. And then in our platform, as Fatima said, doing this type of research is our specialization. And we always do it with the most rigorous way. We have our own proprietary platform for doing this, which is compliant with a range of standards such as ISO that you see there. We do have a secure platform, penetration testing, all of those sorts of things. And that means that we're doing it really with the highest standards of safety and security. As you'll see when we come to the demonstration for the sign up, that means there's a few bits and pieces to go through that correspond with the various security measures that we have. So you can't just tick one box or tap one box to get into the study. There's an informed consent, there's security accepting policies, etc. But hopefully that isn't too laborious for you. It's pretty straightforward. We think we'll guide you through that. And those different steps, I hope, give you a little bit of comfort that we're doing this as safely and securely as we can.
Thank you, Mark. Okay, and just to touch on what you will get out of participating, because of course that's important as well. You're contributing your time and you're contributing your energy and your information. So, I mean, the main contribution really is to contribute to research and support the MG community in the future. There's no direct health benefits of participating in this research because it is observational. So we are observing and looking at how your experiences are unfolding in the real world as they do without any intervention. So there's no direct health benefits, but really the hope is that we will accelerate research that will help MG patients on an ongoing basis and in the future. In terms of other benefits and how we thank you for your contribution, for completing registration, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about what that would look like. But if the whole process is complete, we've introduced a $20 voucher to thank you for your time in doing that. We are also doing a $20 referral bonus because we understand that maybe you know people who would want to participate in this type of research and maybe they're not in our network. So we've also got that. And then on an ongoing basis during the study, it will be $4 per survey that you build up, and you can claim that as an Amazon voucher whenever you want to. So in terms of the number of surveys that you're completing and the time that would be involved in that, every other month you do 4 short surveys, and on the remaining months you do 1 short survey. So maximum the time contribution that you're looking at each month is about 15 minutes. And then each of those surveys is $4 that you can build up and then claim as a voucher at a time of your choosing.
And just to add one little point, Fatima, as we referred to before, you don't have to worry about when you have to do things, or you'll receive an email or an SMS notification if you prefer, saying, "Oh, could you do this?" And then you just do it. So you don't have to worry about the timetable for doing things. You just have to hopefully do as you're told when you get the remote notifications.
Yeah, exactly. You get reminders, and it's a long-term project, so we hope that people will be deciding to come on board as and when they want to and are able to on an ongoing basis. Okay. So just before we get to the Q&A, yes, Rebekah, please.
To your point about the surveys and things, do the patients have control and the opportunity to accept or decline the surveys as they deem it fits, with their schedule or desires, or is this something that once they sign up that they are kind of locked in as they pop up for them?
That is a really good question. So you do not You can not do a survey and nothing bad will happen. So it's not like you don't complete a survey and then we kick you out of the registry. What would happen is if we see that there has been no activity for someone for 3 months, then we would check in with them. So we would just see, are you still happy to be part of this? Because maybe, you've decided that actually you don't really want to participate anymore, which by the way is absolutely fine. You can decide to participate for as long as you want to or as short a time as you want to. But we would check in with you after 3 months and we would give it a bit more time after that. Hopefully we would get a response, but if not, it would really be a period of about 6 months before we were to remove someone because we believed that they weren't participating anymore. So you're not going to get penalized. We understand MG is a fluctuating disease. Sometimes you feel good and sometimes you don't. And sometimes we'll ask you to complete a survey. You won't feel up to it. That's okay. We understand.
Yeah, and there's also a time window. So again, just to reinforce what Fatima said, we know there's things that happen in people's lives and people don't respond immediately. That's absolutely fine. So you might receive an SMS notification with a link to click on to do a survey, but you might not have time, or you might feel sick to do it immediately. There's I can't remember, is it a 24-hour?
It's 3 days.
3 days. Okay, there you
Yeah.
are. 3 days window between when you get a notification and doing it. We have to close those notification windows. We have to have finite notification windows, otherwise we don't know which response is which. So there's a good reason for that. But yeah, hopefully 3 days gives a decent opportunity to respond. And as Fatima said, if you don't, we recognize that there's pretty much good reasons why that happens. So if you are not able to, if you miss one or two, don't worry. We'd still love you to be in the registry.
Yeah, especially as it's a long-term project. But that's a really good question. Thank you, Rebecca. Yeah, so on this page, we will get to the Q&A in just a sec. But if you want to be involved in the registry, if you think that there is someone in your life who might be interested in being involved, you can do that now. So we've got a contact form. I appreciate not everyone is a big fan of QR codes, but I thought it was the easiest way to show it right now. But that QR code leads to the contact form, which is really the first step in the process. But you can also email us. So I've put the email there, vrmg@vitaccess.com. If you email that and just say, I'm interested, we'll be in touch with you. So we'll send you a contact form, and really the process will be having a call with us to go through the registration process is probably the easiest, and we can support you through that and answer any questions that you might have. So I would really encourage that approach. But also, if you really think I don't need any support, I'm really happy to do this by myself, then that's okay too. We'll send you all the information. We'll send you a video that takes you step by step through the process, and you can do that in your own time. And again, we would love for you to become and be involved, but maybe you don't want to be involved right now. Maybe you want to be involved in a month's time or 2 months' time. That's okay. We want this project to go on for a long time. So, if you can't participate at the moment, we just ask that you keep us in mind and get in touch when you do want to get involved. Okay. And now, Q&A. So I did see a question come in on the chat that says it was stated that Argenix sponsored the previous MG registry. Is there a sponsor for the current registry, and if so, who? So yes, that is us. That's Vitaccess. Yeah, Argenix sponsored that previous registry, and actually, eventually, after 4 years, they passed on the responsibility of sponsor to us. So we became the sponsor of that registry eventually, and we took all of our learnings, we brought it forward to develop this new registry, and Vitaccess is the sponsor. So it's really us who handles everything and takes care of your information and your data and handles any research that's done with the registry. Okay, let me look at any other questions. Okay, so Mark, do you want to talk at all about any examples of research studies that might come up using the registry, or any research studies that we've seen be done with the data sets that we've worked with before?
Yeah, okay, that's a really good question because it's sort of concrete, I suppose. I can tell you about some of, I mean, I mentioned in the old study that ran for 4 years, which hopefully is quite a good example of the types of questions that you can address with this type of real world research. We had in the core data set, we looked at we investigated things like work-life productivity. So the extent to which having myasthenia gravis may impact patients' ability to work, time off, the type of job they have. So, you know, that's it's quite a very interesting topic in that, and again, all of you guys will know more about this than me, but it doesn't get covered in clinical trials, but it's obviously of huge interest to patients on a long-term basis. And it takes a little bit of teasing out to understand it a little bit. So I'll give you an example. If you ask people how, you know, what a question like, is there a sort of unemployment linked to their condition? You might get a certain answer, but actually that's a nuanced answer because some people might have a job, but it might not be the job they had if they didn't have myasthenia. Okay, so it takes a little bit of understanding, and it's never covered in clinical trials, that sort of question, but obviously very important to patients. We had other research questions about very much linked to the patient-reported surveys that we were administering. So things like fatigue, things like quality of life, and we had individual publications linked to that. So that gave us some confidence that this type of research could help us answer quite a lot of research questions. In the new study, I'd make a couple of suggestions about topics that I think will be very interesting to explore, but we haven't done it yet. One of those is switching of treatments. Now, you will be very much aware of the new treatments that have been arriving on the market in the last, you know, 4-ish years, starting with the argenx drug, Vyvgart, efgartigimod. Now, that's great news because there are more treatment options, of course, but how do those all fit together when in the real world? Now, when you're doing clinical trials, you're really looking at how one treatment, the efficacy, the safety of a particular treatment, but in the real world, it's a little bit different. What if you started on one treatment, then for whatever reason, you stopped that treatment, it wasn't working as well for you, you had some side effects, and then started perhaps on another treatment. So that switching scenario, of course, is pretty interesting for, you know, if you for patients, but it's not explored in clinical trials at all. So that's one topic that I think we're going to be really exploring once we get the sufficient data set to see, okay, in our registry, do we have patients who started on innovative treatment A but went to B, and why did they? Is it a particular profile of patient that might be more suited to A than B, or vice versa? So hopefully that makes a bit of sense. And as I said, when I was talking about this before, those are just some starting ideas. There will be a whole load of research questions we don't even know about yet that we will begin to explore when we start looking at the data. Rebekah.
Yeah, I'm just to your point. I don't know if anybody's asked this question, but I think it's something that maybe Mark you could address in a little bit more detail for the patients. How would access to their medical records in this particular circumstance, how would that help direct you guys in guiding clinical research, you know, what you're going to necessarily look at, find valuable, maybe even things that you see popping up as patterns. I mean, we've talked about in previous, you know, meetings and stuff, if you start seeing patterns in patient records, because a lot of times even neurologists aren't necessarily looking at the whole picture, they're looking at a very nuanced picture and things get missed. And so what would the value be for you guys and how would you utilize their records, not only for the MG, but again, kind of their whole picture? Because a lot of us have multiple conditions, How do they play with the MG? So what would you guys be looking for? How would you potentially be utilizing this so that they kind of know what they're signing up for and what that would do for research purposes?
Yeah, so that's a really good question. So the starting point, I guess, is having a broad recruitment. So we're trying to get, and this is a little bit what Rebekah alluded to at the beginning. We don't have any restricted inclusion exclusion criteria as clinical trials have to. We basically want any adults with MG, and one of the reasons for that is so that we're able to build up a big database. So then we're able to gives us more power scientifically to try and find patterns, to try and conduct analyses of subgroups. So to give you an example, we might be looking, and again, I'll go back to the switching example. We might be interested in patients who start with one new innovative treatment, then switch to the other. Now, the more of those patients that we can get, the better, because then we can look at, so for instance, it's a lot more powerful if we have 100 patients in that subgroup A to B than if we only have 10. If we have 100, we can say, okay, out of those 100 patients, it appears that we've got some patterns here. It appears that the people who switch from A to B, they're typically, I'm making this up, they're typically have a certain age. They might be older than a certain average. They might have certain other conditions. They might have, I don't know what those mean. Type 2 diabetes, for the sake of argument. They might have certain demographic profiles in terms of weight or whatever it might be. We don't know those, but if we have a bigger sample size, it enables us to generate some hypotheses that actually people who are typically switching from A to B have this profile. And that might be interesting in and of itself, or it might enable us to say, actually, we want to do a deep dive in this. We think we could be onto something here. We want to do some extra research on this to try and identify this pattern, in more detail. Does that make sense, Rebekah?
Yes, perfectly. And I really appreciate kind of bringing that in because, from my perspective, as a patient leader, it's always looking at, when I'm working with the patient community, I see such a wide swath of topics and things that we're talking about that just the way the medical system is built, clinical research is built, it's not built to look at things the way that you do, the way that you're proposing, right? And so I think by nature, and there's value and benefit for each type of research. They all have their place. But I think this just again allows for really to just go back to casting a wider net and to again looking at patterns and things that doctors don't necessarily catch or other research teams may not be looking at or catching, and that helps shape you going, what we're really seeing a particular presentation with this age group, or we're really seeing a particular direction that isn't really being noticed. My other question, if it's okay if I ask a question on this, my other question directed to you guys is, are patients allowed to, in the surveys or through some other means that you guys would to build, are they able to self-report? So I know a lot of patients over the years have spoken in the community, approached me, we wish people would pay attention to um, our memory issues, our brain fog, bladder issues, pain. A lot of patients have heat sensitivity. They might sweat more frequently, and that would be independent of, is that independent of the certain medications they're on? And a lot of clinical research isn't necessarily looking at that, and quality of life, and ADLs. There's so many directions to go in, so I'm not trying to go too broad, but is there a way for a patient to self-report and say, hey, this is something that, because pain is not going to necessarily show up in EMR, right? The medical records aren't necessarily going to bring that forward or bring forward memory issues or bladder dysfunction. It might, but a lot of physicians tend to not record that. So this might be outside the scope of what you're wanting to do, but is there a way for a patient, kind of within this data set that you're looking at, to maybe fill in the blanks a little bit, saying, here's my data set, here's maybe some of the contextual information, whether it's through surveys or anything like that. What do you think about the viability? Is that off the table, on the table?
That's really interesting. So there's the way we're initially set up is, as I said before, to try and use validated, very specific surveys about certain things, because those answers to those surveys are understood sort of in the scientific literature. So that's one point. But things evolve, and I think there's an opportunity for this type of registry to do other things that are, if a participant were to be doing their surveys, their validated surveys, think, hold on, we're missing some stuff in my life. Something's wrong. Sorry, there's something here I think is important in my condition, but it's not captured. So I think you guys are missing a trick here in not exploring this. We'd love to hear about those things. Now, going back to the second slide that you saw up there, which was around our scientific advisory board. Now, Fatima and I, we do a lot of this type of research, and the rest of our team, we do this research, but we don't make any claim that we're myasthenia gravis clinical experts by any means. However, we know folks who are. We've got our scientific advisory boards. So if we were to receive these suggestions for how the registry might be evolved, we would take that to our scientific advisory board and get their view on this. And remember, those clinicians who are on that scientific advisory board, the main reason they're doing that is because they're interested in the type of scientific advances that we could make. Okay, so they would be very interested, and they recognise the shortcomings that you mentioned, Rebekah, that in their clinical practice they don't see certain things, and that's why they're involved in this. So I think there's an opportunity. How we would do that is not within the actual registry platform itself, but we would be very happy to receive suggestions. But Fatima said that she put up the email address of the study. So if anyone wanted to contact us on that, we would be very happy to have their suggestions. Now, as I said, their suggestions we can't guarantee would implement them, but we'd certainly be interested in hearing them. And as this is a long-term study, again, it would be weird if it didn't evolve at all throughout that 10-year period. And again, part of that's about us understanding things as we progress, but part of it might be hearing from participants about things that, guess what, we might have missed.
Yeah, I think this is actually quite topical. There's someone in the chat who asked if this will pick up common complaints of MG patients that aren't currently recognized as being a part of MG, such as restless leg syndrome. So I think that really fits in with what Rebekah's saying, that there are aspects of the experience of MG that are just not captured in clinical research the way that it's done currently. And this is absolutely the reason why we're doing this registry. And that is why combining patient-reported data with the clinical data, that's how it helps, because then you say, there's this survey that asks questions about this thing, and maybe it hasn't been used in MG before, but we can look at it and we can see, can we use that survey in MG and ask those questions and see how it fluctuates over time, and then how it matches up with the medical record data and all of those things. The possibilities are kind of endless, because the registry is just the beginning point. The registry is how you collect the data, and that's what we're talking to you about today. But the registry will have studies that branch off of it. It's like the central point of, a tree, and it has all these branches and lots of studies. And yeah, that all you need is interest in a topic, and then we help people develop those studies. That's kind of what we do. So, and there was also someone who said, please use Rebekah for your survey topics. So I think, Rebekah, it's definitely
Deal.
yeah. Well, Rebekah's on our scientific advisory board now, so we're really, really honored to have her on board, and we hope that she'll be able to give us feedback on all of those kind of things. her, Amanda, and everyone else on the SAB that we're very happy to be working with. Also, just to say, someone asked if the webinar will be able to be viewed later. Yes, absolutely. We're going to share that round. Rebekah will have a link as well that she'll be able to share around. So we only have a couple of minutes left. What we're going to do is not actually a full demo, because what I'm going to recommend is that people email us. I'll put the email again up shortly, or fill in the contact form so we can go through the registration with you. But in the couple of minutes that we have left, I would like to just show you what it looks like so you can get an idea. So just bear with me while I change to a different screen. Okay. Make sure that I'm sharing the right thing. Yes. Okay, great. So in terms of what the process will look like for you, basically, you will have an ID and PIN number that is assigned to you. So the ID and PIN number is really where you start. So once you get in touch with us, obviously we'll take you through the registration process if you're happy for us to do that, but it will all start with an ID and PIN number. And
just double checking that everyone can see the screen that Fatima's sharing. Can everyone see that? Amanda, Rebekah?
can you see that?
Yeah, you can. Okay,
Yes, I can
good.
see everything.
Okay, perfect. I'm trying. It'd be nice if I didn't have to show you every slide, but I might just run through.
While you're pulling them up, I just wanted to make a point while you're pulling them up real quick. Just so you guys know, I've gone through this process with the registration and onboarding the EMR. If you need help with anything, or if you have any concerns, you can reach out to me. You guys know how to reach me. You can reach out to the team. It's and they'll cover this. I just wanted to jump in while she was pulling things up. Everything is secure and protected. Nothing about this is going to violate your privacy, especially with your records or data breaches. Nobody will sell anything or give your information away. So I just wanted to assure you guys this is a very safe process.
Yeah, absolutely. So I wanted to have a kind of control panel, but I can't figure out where the control. Well, maybe I'll just do this. So just to show you, that was how it started. Then you've got the informed consent document. So the informed consent document, you read through, explains everything to you about what we're doing, how we handle your data, your rights for your data, which are absolutely, you can exercise your rights on your data at any time. And that doesn't change by participating in the registry or if you want to stop at any time. And then you answer some questions about if you consent to additional communication. So that's about, are you happy to be emailed about further research, or are you happy to be emailed with results of studies and things like that? So that's this page. And then once you've done that, you will get to the EMR aspect. So there's kind of two parts of the registration process, and we'll support you through that. But part one is on the platform where you complete your surveys, and part two is the EMR platform. So I'm just going to again show you the key pages on this platform. And Rebekah, I don't know if you want to say any words about your experience of doing this. So just starting from, creating a password on your account.
Yeah, so the login and registration is really simple to kind of go through this process. Once you have this established, it will take you through and she'll take you through the process, but it'll take you through a series of layers of kind of approvals and security and things like that. As far as the EMR onboarding, some of the electronic medical records I had no problem registering. Others I had to give a little bit more information, and then the company had to kind of go through that process and register it for me. So don't be alarmed if you come across anything. If you get to a certain point, they are 100% happy to either get on calls or do whatever they have to help you. But it's a fairly straightforward process once you sign up. But if you do get stuck with any kind of registration process, it's easy for us to jump in and take care of it for you.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, so it starts like this. You see the create password page, and then you're asked to read through some terms of use, and then you can connect your healthcare records. So where it says import health record, that's where it really starts. And I won't take you through all the slides now because we're at time, but just to show you, basically this is what it looks like when you're connecting to your health records. You see this page that says green light, and you go through the processes Rebekah described. So there are a
And
couple of
just to
steps,
add a
but
note here,
yeah,
I'm so
please.
sorry, just to add a
No, no.
note here, once you get to green light, they will, before you give consent to access your records, they will detail, nothing will be sold. We're not going to basically data breach this. This is basically HIPAA compliant, fully privatized. This is only going to be restricted to these particular accessibility points. So they'll go through multiple steps of making sure you know about your data and you giving consent to make sure everybody is on board and there is no confusion or concern about who's behind this and what they're doing with it.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so apologies. I think when I started sharing those slides, they weren't actually visible to everyone, so I'm sorry about that. But what I will do is stop sharing and just thank you all for your time. I'm going to send round the webinar recording to everyone who was part of this, but also anyone who couldn't actually join us and did express interest, and hopefully we can pass it on to other people. We would absolutely love for you to be part of the registry if it's something that you're interested in. And again, if you have any questions, if you would like to do the registration call with us and just ask your questions, and perhaps you'll decide on the call, do you know what, it's not for me, that's absolutely fine. We're here to answer your questions and we're here to support you. So we think that there's a lot of exciting things coming on this project and we'd love for you to be a part of it. So I think that's it. Thank you so much to Amanda, to Rebekah. Thank you, Mark, and especially thank you to everyone who joined us.
Fantastic.
And I'll let
Thanks.
you all go.
Thank you guys for
Thank you
everything
so
you're
much.
doing.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye,
Thank
everyone.
you. Bye.